One of the hardest things to explain about an abusive relationship is that it's not bad all the time, right? Sometimes he's really nice and sometimes he's awful and you kind of don't know who he is, but this is actually the crux of the trap with an abusive man. If he was cruel and mean every second of every day, you'd see it faster. You would leave, but he's not. Sometimes he's kind and he listens and he apologizes and he touches you gently and makes you laugh. And he gives you the exact version of him that you have been starving for, the version that you met at the beginning. And that's what makes the bad so tolerable. It's the thing that makes you stay. It's the illusion of reciprocity, because now you're not only reacting to the harm, you are chasing the return of the good. And this is where too many women get completely stuck, because we think that the good means that he is good and sometimes he does bad things. We think that this means that the relationship is worth saving because it's not all bad. So you kind of go like, okay, it goes like this: bad, good. You want more good, less bad. Ideally, all good, no bad. But hey, relationships aren't perfect, right? The good exists to facilitate the bad. The good is there strategically on purpose. Kindness and reciprocity is part of the abuse cycle. It would fall apart without it. I'm going to break down how abusive men use intermittent kindness to create this kind of illusion of reciprocity, why the good moments feel incredibly powerful, and how this actually forms something called a trauma bond. Why the part of the relationship that you keep calling love is actually the part that keeps you trapped. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm an expert in toxic and abusive relationships. I've written 5 books and I travel the world speaking on domestic violence, narcissism, and the patriarchy. On my channel, I expose what abusive men are doing, why they do it, and I help women become way more clear so that you can decide if you're going to stay in this relationship or leave. I help women rebuild themselves and find themselves, love themselves after they have left abusive and toxic relationships. So let's get into why this relationship feels so reciprocal, because just sometimes he gives you what you need. But this is actually the beginning of the illusion, right? He's not always cold. He's not always cruel. Sometimes he's dismissive, but not always. There's warmth, there's attention. He validates you. He listens sometimes if you catch him at the right moment, right? He says exactly what you needed to hear 6 months ago. And because you are deprived and starving for emotion and attention, that little bit feels huge. It feels really powerful. It feels like evidence, right? He can love. I know he can love because I've seen it. I have felt it. He just doesn't always do it. It's very inconsistent. You think when he's nice, when he apologizes, when he seems to take accountability, but not really, it's evidence that he understands you. It's evidence that he actually does get it. There's something mutual here because you keep seeing the guy that you fell in love with in the beginning. But this is actually occasional relief. And that is 100% not the same thing as reciprocity. The good in any of these abusive relationships, it is the thing that makes the bad survivable. That's the part that you need to hear. That is the biggest takeaway. All these good moments don't cancel out the bad. No more than his friggin' alleged intention takes away the impact. It only helps you survive this more, right? A kind day after a cruel week and poof, you've reset your hope. You're still there. So if he apologizes after a blow up, you question your anger. You immediately calm down. Any kind of soft moment or interaction after he's been stonewalling you or mean or withdrawn, it makes you relax. It makes you take a breath. It resets your hope every time, right? This isn't random at all. This is actually a very clear mechanism of what he's doing. Now, before people go down this rabbit hole, because the thing that so many women say to me, and I hear you and you're not wrong, this is not about intelligence. The amount of women that say things like, well, my guy's not that smart. He couldn't do all this, right? This is so strategic. You got to consider it more instinctual than strategic. It is strategic, but it's not like calculating all the time. They know exactly what they're doing. It's just sort of, if I do this, I get this result, rinse and repeat. So they don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing. People ask, does he know that he's putting me in a trauma bond? Probably not. He probably doesn't know the term, probably. The internet these days, you never know. But he's not strategically going, if I do this, then that means she will be emotionally dependent. He just knows that when he does this, you stay. Don't overthink this part, okay? The good exists to facilitate the bad. And that sounds harsh as hell, but I want you to watch the pattern because the good appears when you're pulling away, when you're upset, when he wants something from you, like some spicy time, when he wants to go hang out with his friends, when he just wants a night of peace, when you're angry, when you're close to leaving, all of these things, right? Whenever his access is threatened. And that's the key. He's not delivering kindness because he's kind. He's delivering kindness because it gives him something. He benefits from this, right? So the kindness comes back just enough, just a little sprinkle to keep him in this relationship. It keeps the whole system alive. You look at the cycle of an abusive relationship, kindness and cruelty, rinse and repeat. He only needs to be just loving enough, just often enough to keep you hooked. He doesn't have to be consistently loving. He doesn't even want to be. Intermittent reinforcement is the addiction pattern. That's the trauma bond piece. Now, just for anybody really quick, sort of boring definition, a trauma bond is an unhealthy attachment that exists in any relationship where there is an oscillation of kindness and cruelty, right? Consistent safety wouldn't make you chase, right? Predictable kindness does not create attachment and obsession. You would think that it does. You would think, but it doesn't. In fact, inconsistency is incredibly addictive. Intermittent kindness works really well. A lot of people compare this to gambling, right? It's the sort of an age-old description of how trauma bonding works. You put your coin in the slot machine, you pull, you win something, but sometimes you get nothing. But you are addicted to this behavior because sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And you never know when that's going to be. So it becomes addictive and you keep trying. It's the same premise, okay? Your nervous system is watching for the kindness again, the goodness. You're waiting, you're hoping. That's why trauma bonds can also be called fear bonds, betrayal bonds, hope bonds. You even hear a term called hopium, which I think is just a phenomenal term. It combines hope and opium, which is highly addictive. But this is why you're like reading the texts and hoping and checking his body for moods and looking for signs. The reward is unpredictable, and an unpredictable reward is incredibly addictive. Your brain is chasing the relief the same way it would chase a hit or a win from the machine. But all this, and you start mistaking relief for love. These get conflated. So after a period of distance or him being cold or stonewalling you, fear or something like that, the return of his warmth, attention, love, it's euphoric. Your body relaxes and your chest opens and it's like, oh, there he is. That's the guy. We're okay. I knew he loved me, right? But that's not love. That's not love at all. That is relief after deprivation, after a threat, after all this uncertainty. Look at the pattern. The pattern tells you everything. He gives you just enough to keep you working hard, just enough affection to keep you hoping, right? Every time you go to walk away, he understands. He understood the whole time. These men constantly telling you, I don't understand why you're mad. Yeah, you do. Steve understands why you're mad. Yes, he does. He wants you to defend yourself and explain why you're mad and be like, I don't get it. He doesn't want to seem like he gets it so that you keep explaining so that if he doesn't get it, he can keep doing it. It's that simple, and we stay not because we're blind necessarily. I think mostly it's because we're confused and attached. We have just enough evidence to argue with our own reality, and they're doing it on purpose. In fact, the confusion that this creates, we call it cognitive dissonance, but there's a term that was coined by Dr. Peter Salerno called traumatic cognitive dissonance, which is detailed in his book by the same name. It really goes into such detail, and I recommend that book to anyone who will listen. The bad creates the hunger, okay? And the good in the relationship, that feeds it. This is the cycle. He withdraws, you become anxious. He criticizes, you try harder. He punishes you, you seek repair. He creates distance and you crave closeness. And what's really interesting is maybe he's avoidant, right? He pulls away and I chase. That's our pattern. This is not about attachment theory, okay? We go down all these pop culture relationship terms. Not that attachment theory is a pop culture term, but this idea that we sort of latch onto. Things have become oversimplified a lot because of social media. And then we think, oh, that's what this is. That's not what this is. This is an abusive dynamic. That's not just the cycle of an avoidant and an anxious person. When he's bad, it creates this starvation in you for the good. And then when he gives you the good, you're feeding yourself. And the hunger gets mistaken for love. And it's why the friggin' trauma bond feels, frankly, all-consuming. because you're not just attached to him, you're attached to the cycle. So this illusion of reciprocity, it keeps you from naming exploitation because he does things for you too, right? He's sometimes nice and comforts you, and sometimes he apologizes. May not sound like he means it. Maybe he buys you something or shows you affection. Now, a key thing for some women is that we talk about the good and the bad. I just want to point out that for some women, plenty of women, too many, it's actually bad and absence of bad. There isn't always good, but the absence of harm can feel really good when the alternative is abuse. So when you hear people talk about good and bad, just know that sometimes the good isn't apologies and buying you things and affection. It's just when he kind of ignores you or kind of exists in a way that isn't super awful in your life. But many people feel, really unfair calling the relationship one-sided or calling him abusive because he's not all bad. But reciprocity is actually not some occasional effort anytime you pull away. That's not what that is. I'm going to call that crisis management because that's really what's happening. There's a crisis in him. Oh my God, she's leaving. Oh my God, I don't have control anymore. And in order to maintain that, he does the thing that works, which is he's kind to you. Just enough, just a little crumb. So if your giving into the relationship is pretty consistent, right? It's a constant, but his giving is strategic, that imbalance needs to be highlighted here. Sit in that. Now, where we can get more exposing of these men, he knows exactly which version works on you, right? Which good guy to play, right? He knows exactly what reaches you. Some women work really well when they get an apology and a soft voice and affection. Some it's sex, some it's tears, right? These men I don't want to lose you. You're my everything. I love you so much. But you're abusive makes no sense. Makes no sense. But when you're in it, the relief, it makes it make sense somehow. Our brains just don't want to hold on to the bad. So he'll promise you something. The sudden family man act that they do, this little moment of tenderness. I'm just saying that he knows what gets you, right? He knows guilt works on you. He knows anger or fear works on you. He knows what powers this resistance, okay? What makes you soften. He knows these things. He's learned what works. And again, he doesn't have to be smart. It's natural to them. Now, it's learned, but it feels natural to them. So women are like, well, what version is real, right? Is he good or is he bad? Is he cruel or is he kind? He's cruel because what good man is bad sometimes? Good men are not sometimes abusive. Bad men, they're kind all the time. Kind, heavy on the air quotes, right? This is not a man who destroys you but loves you. That doesn't make any sense. Both versions might exist, but you're asking yourself, what's the real version? Good men are not abusive, ever. Not that they don't get angry, right? They're not never upset. They don't have no feelings. They're not robots. What I'm saying is there's no pattern of abuse in a healthy relationship. You can still have a disagreement and it's not abuse. Does it ever lead to a lasting repair? Does it change? When he apologizes, does the behavior change? Is there accountability when you kind of soften and accept an apology? Or does he just go back to the same old crap that he's always done, right? Does the bad stop? Or does the good only reset the existing cycle, right? The good can become evidence against you. And I think that is part of the mind F as well. You try to leave and your brain starts pulling up this Rolodex of all the good moments, right? The trips and the apologies and the chemistry and the private jokes and the kisses and the love. And now you feel cruel. You're ungrateful. You're confused, And I think you feel bad. Often women report to me that they feel so bad focusing on the bad times because there's so much good. That's why in coaching sessions, so many women join and they say, I want to tell you about him, but I want to be fair. And I want to tell you all the good things he does too, not just the bad, so that you can properly assess him. I'm not here to assess him. You're the one living with that. All abusive relationships have good. Tell me about the patterns. That's what I want to hear. Your mind is using the good as a defense against reality because of the traumatic cognitive dissonance. It is so hard. And so our brains want the easiest solution, which is, he's not that bad. Maybe I did this. Maybe it's me. Maybe his mom didn't teach him. Maybe he's traumatized. An easier solution because reality hurts way too much to hold all at once. And the truth is, this is why trauma bonds are so resistant to change because it's not just an emotional attachment. It's actually one of the most addictive relationship patterns in the world. A trauma bond is literally built through contradiction, fear and hope, right? Harm and relief, pain and comfort, deprivation and reward. That's what it is. Cruelty and tenderness, distance and reconnection. Like it just, right? So you're bonded really to the promise of relief, to the possible return to the beginning. And we love that. It's a beautiful fantasy, but we become addicted to the potential that he'll go back. But you know the pattern and you know that he hurts you. But it's really hard to accept this and to let it go. Now, I have a free quiz that's in the caption and on my website, lisasonni.com, and it's called Am I Trauma Bonded? 2 minutes, instant results, no strings attached. When you start to see this pattern, the truth is, it is devastating to say the least. It is absolutely beyond words painful. You want to see the good and you want it to mean something pure, that he really does love you like he said he did, because what the hell was this all for? You know, you want the relationship to still be what you hoped. You want to get back to that, but that's the hope talking. What came before it? What is this relationship really all about, right? Does the harm actually lead to any change? Because asking yourself these questions and really living in reality, doing reality testing, it's how the illusion starts to fall apart. I think the difference between real good and like hook good or fake good, it's consistent. You know, I think that when they're hooking you and resetting the hope, it's timed. It's specific. It's when you're pulling away, when there's a consequence for him. And that's the problem, right? Is that we see it as you don't know what you got till it's gone, but it's actually, he is facing consequences of you leaving and he doesn't like it. So he resets when you pull away, when you get upset. But when things are just regular, he's perfectly happy to be abusive. Real kindness would stay after you stop threatening to leave. Not when you start to feel safe again, major air quotes on the safe, but when you start to kind of relax back into the relationship, he goes back to his old ways every time. Could be weeks, could be months, but they go back to their old way because abusive men don't change. And I know this is incredibly hard to accept for a million reasons, grief especially. The grief is maybe one of the most brutal parts. It's why we cling to the hope so much. But we need to start breaking this illusion of reciprocity. He's only kind to you sometimes. So ask yourself, what is the real truth? Good moments might have felt real. And honestly, I'm sure it was real to you. I don't want to take that from you. Your attachment was real. The hope was real. But you don't have to prove that the good was fake to justify leaving. I think you just have to recognize that the good doesn't protect you from the bad. I think it helps you endure it. And once you see that, how do you unsee that? When you really sit in that reality, the illusion of reciprocity is one of the strongest pieces of a trauma bond because it gives the relationship like just enough good to make the bad survivable, just enough kindness to confuse you, just enough accountability to keep you waiting for him to be better. But the cycle continues. So stop measuring the relationship by how much good there is and measure it by what the good version allows. Hit subscribe if you're not already. And if you're trying to break a trauma bond, you are absolutely in the right place. I'm an expert on breaking trauma bonds, and I have written a course that is self-paced called the Trauma Bond Recovery Course. I also have a live interactive version of that I co-host with Dr. Peter Salerno called the Trauma Bond Recovery Group Coaching Program, or you can work with me one-on-one. Check out my website, lisasonni.com, for more information. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.